In this video, I want to talk about management consulting, specifically talk about the overall business consulting landscape. Who are the different consulting firms in the landscape of business consulting? And then how do they differ from each other? What is strategy consulting? What is management consulting, etc. The reason I'm doing this video is because there's so much misleading information out there. Simply not true statements like McKinsey is just doing strategy work or Accenture is just doing IT implementation. And a lot of companies are even putting on their website misleading statements saying we are a boutique management consulting, and they're actually not really doing management consulting. And that's why in this video I want to share with you a simple framework that will help you navigate the industry, prepare for interviews, but also just for people that are curious in understanding more about what the different consulting companies like McKinsey, Deloitte, etc. are doing. I myself worked in consulting for quite a long time. I was at Bain company, one of the top management consulting companies, for over 5 years. And during that time, I learned more and more about the different companies. I interacted with different consulting companies as part of client engagements, but also have many friends and colleagues in different consulting companies, which helps me understand how the different players are different and what they're actually doing. And I want to use this time to share that with you. As always, I structured this video into different sections, which will allow you to jump to different sections that you are most interested in. So there isn't a need to watch the whole video, but obviously I would love for you to watch the whole video and let me know about any feedback, comments in the comments section. Consulting and business consulting overall is a huge industry, and it's a very broad term. In simple terms, it means that a company hires an outside company, an outside consulting company, to help them with whatever business problem they have. Since it's so generic and almost every company uses consultants in one way or another, it's a huge industry. I saw numbers that there are 700,000 consulting companies in the world. The way I think about the consulting landscape is along two dimensions. On the one side, the horizontal, is to think about the different functions or themes of a company. You could also think about it in terms of an organizational chart. Like, what are the different divisions of a company? So there might be a business development, M&A department, and there might be a sales and marketing team. There might be an operations product team or a HR finance functions. And so most companies think of their work as there are product units, business units, and then there are functional teams. And that's the first dimension to think about. What are the big buckets of types of work? Like strategy work. And I like to think of it as strategy work, and there might be M&A work, private equity, sales and marketing, operations like planned work, HR work, etc. And then the other dimension is how senior are the clients? Are you primarily working with more senior people, the board -2 level clients, or more junior levels like middle management, subject matter experts? And that helps you to think of the overall landscape as different functions or themes, types of work, and then the type of level you typically interact within an organization. And let me highlight a couple of the key functions or themes. Strategy work is typically around long-term plans, what are the type of markets we want to play in, and then what kind of products do we launch, do we want to sunset, a little bit of product portfolio optimization. That's very strategic thinking, long-term, and typically more overall company-wide corporate strategy. Then on M&A, acquiring companies, integrating them. Then operations work are more questions around the production. How can we become more efficient, lowering costs? Another very typical consulting area is IT. What is our overall IT strategy? And then implementing long-term IT changes or IT transformations. So these are a couple functional areas you could play in as a consulting company, but also as a consultant. And then the other important dimension, and I think that dimension is typically not talked about so much, is what are the type of clients within the organizations you engage with. And so thinking of it as the top are the very senior level clients, the board, one level down, chief officers, VPs, etc. And then as you go down, you move more into like the actual deepness of the organization, middle managers and subject matter experts. And that helps you to distinguish between management consulting and more implementation process consultant. And the logical next question is, what type of companies play where? And it's easy to plot some of the classic consulting companies like a McKinsey, BCG, Bain in the management consulting space, and the big implementation consulting companies, or at least legacy consulting companies or legacy implementation companies like an Accenture, a Deloitte, more in the implementation and process bucket. Most consulting companies, they start within one specific area, one intersection in this landscape. For instance, BCG, McKinsey, starting in the strategy, primarily strategic type of work in the management consulting space, but also they've moved across the other functions, the other themes, and have done a bunch of strategic work in that area or management consulting work. But they've also moved down slowly, doing some implementation work. So it's not just about doing the strategic type of work, management consulting, very high level, and then handing it off. There's way more fluidity across the space. The same with the implementation and process type consulting companies. They've bought some more management consulting, strategic thinking consulting companies. For instance, EY bought Parthenon a while ago, Deloitte Monitor, and PwC bought Booz. Now it's called Strategy End. And so the takeaway is, while you have consulting companies that come from one space, they're slowly moving into other spaces, but there's still, I would say, a certain focus area of a company. For instance, Accenture, if you go on their website, they obviously promote it as they're doing everything, but in practice, they're still doing a lot of implementation work, IT implementation work. And the same for a company like BCG or Bain. While they do the whole spectrum, they might be more focused in one area. Like Bain does a lot of M&A private equity work. And so there's still a little bit of a focus, but they're trying to cover a broader spectrum across. I already talked a little bit about the different type of work between management consulting and then implementation, where implementation is more long-term projects, implementing a new IT system, changing the organization, while the strategic type of work or management consultant is shorter types of projects. The project might only be 3 months or so, and you would work with very high-level people, or at least people high up in the organization, as opposed to the full breadth of the organization, like all the middle managers and subject matter experts. And the reason that a lot of implementation consulting companies are moving up towards the management consulting space is that the rates are typically higher. You can charge higher rates per day, and so it's typically a more profitable space. The branding is more important. Once you have a strong brand, it's easier to get follow-up work, as opposed to the implementation work, where it's a little bit more commoditized and the margins tend to be lower. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions about this video or the business consulting landscape overall, please let me know. Drop a comment in the comment section and I'm happy to answer any questions.